When we think of cyberbullying, we often imagine a child or a young adult getting upsetting, frustrating, bullying, or often offensive texts on their phone. And we just ask, why don't you just block them? Because we assume that these might be schoolmates or strangers, they don't spend much time together anyway, and so that's the easiest solution. However, we don't often recognize that cyberbullying is a bit more complex than that, and it's not always possible to be just blocking whoever the perpetrator is. Current literature identifies 7 different types of cyberbullying. These are different terms that all come under this umbrella term that we call cyberbullying. Flaming would be the one that describes getting upsetting, bullying messages on your phone. We have 6 more. We have online harassment, cyberstalking, denigration, masquerading, trickery and outing, and online exclusion. Some people also argue that actually inviting people to participate in online challenges, some of which might be actually quite dangerous, think of like the typo challenge or the cinnamon challenge, and even online trolling would be, could be identified as some sort of cyberbullying. But regardless of the type of bullying that the victim may experience, they are always left upset, depressed, isolated, and anxious. And the levels of anxiety are often a lot higher than with traditional bullying because of the dehumanizing factors of online spaces, the anonymity, and the isolation itself. Maybe not so surprisingly, while traditional bullying is decreasing throughout one's education, all the way from primary to, say, higher education, cyberbullying is actually increasing and is peaking around one's undergraduate studies. And it never actually goes away. And I'm sure that some of you might have had that experience as well. So traditionally, research focused on students bullying each other all the way from primary to higher education. And this is evidenced by over 40,000 papers in this area. These papers focused on things like prevalence, how much of this is actually happening, the causes, why are students doing this, and also what can we do to reduce or stop it. So thinking about the interventions. But they often forgot that there is another side of the classroom that we tend to forget about. And actually, students don't just bully each other, they also bully teaching staff, or cyberbully teaching staff, I should say. Actually, research found that staff are 3 times more likely to be harassed by students online than students between each other. So research in the UK identified that higher education teaching staff would be bullied or cyberbullied by students if they thought that they didn't do their job properly. What does this entail? Sometimes it's things like handing out a bad mark or not providing excessive help beyond what's already been offered, or even things like complying to university procedures and guidance on allowing extensions on papers. But cyberbullying does not just happen on university email accounts. It also happens on social media, particularly Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And it also happens in online classrooms. A lot of us are still delivering distance learning courses online. So those bullying experiences will be present in Zoom or, say, MS Teams. But most importantly, feedback forms. We provide anonymous online forms to the students to be giving feedback on our course, on our teaching, but staff actually noted that when they get the feedback, they go through it, the students actually often assess them as a person as opposed to the teaching on the course or the module that they are taking. Research found that around 2/3 of academics or academic teaching staff would be comfortable identifying the signs of cyberbullying and reporting it if it happened to them or if it happened to a colleague. But what's concerning that even though a quarter of the staff actually experienced cyberbullying, left feeling anxious, upset, even threatened after an exchange with a student online, 3/4 of them are not aware of any procedures and policies in place, and 2/3 of them don't actually know what kind of support is available if it happened to a member of staff. They know what's available to the students, but not for them. And no, we cannot just block a student. We need to keep those communication lines open. We need to respond to emails. We need to read that feedback form, take that feedback on board, and we also need to teach the online class. And to put all of this to context, I actually collected some ideas that staff reported. Some of them mentioned that they've been called pathetic, patronizing, or even incompetent by students in messages or emails. A lot of them were emotionally blackmailed in emails to get a better mark, or they talked about the financial consequences to the family if they failed. They have been called out if they were not responding to emails outside of working hours or while they were on annual leave. I know that some people are nodding, so yeah, these are actually happening. And some were actually mocked for their accents or criticized for them. And if we circle back to those feedback forms, staff said that a lot of the feedback they receive is overly personal, brutal, sometimes really hard to read, and someone even called it deeply scarring. The lack of support given, considering the mental health impact that this kind of bullying in higher education has, is something that needs to be addressed. We need to think about how we can raise awareness of cyberbullying, but not just cyberbullying, but the procedures and the help and support in place for academics. And if these are not something that are in place, we actually need to think about how we can change that. And that change starts with me today, sharing this information with you, and this starts with us recognizing that these are real issues and we need to do something about it. Because when over 70,000 members of the University and College Union are out on the streets, striking over pay, pension, and working conditions, those working conditions do actually include the lack of support and guidance procedures for academics who may experience this kind of behavior from students. And I'm sure that a lot of you who might not be working in higher education do recognize this from your own workplace, because these things are not just happening in higher education, they happen across the world, across most employment sectors, and so we need to change this, okay? That change starts with us today. Thank you.